Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Gray Maybe podcast. Thank you so much for coming back if you are a repeat listener. I love the repeat listeners and my hardcore people that have listened to every single episode. You know who you are. If you are new to the podcast, welcome. Thanks for choosing to tune in and listen. I hope you find something to relate to in this episode or other episodes you might decide to listen to after listening to this episode. Today, I have a very old friend, not old in age. We are very young at heart and in spirit. Elder millennials here, but in the building. But a friend from my youth, this lovely lady I met when I want to say she might tell me otherwise. Like she might be more specific on this, but I think we met in a summer school program for math, and we were not mathers. We were actually the opposite of math, which is why we were made to be. I have a feeling, which is why we were made to be in this program. But it was like one of those things that I was like dreading so hard. I was like, I can't believe I have to do math in summer school because I'm terrible at math, and it gives me a complex, and I hate it, and it's the last thing I want to do. And I showed up to this math class, which was not scary at all, by the way. But what made it actually fun, and actually I had a blast, was I met this young lady who was just as hateful about math, and we laughed. She was so funny. I kept laughing at the things she was saying, and then this teacher was really funny, and it was just a funny thing. And we bonded over a lot of things, our hate for math, also our love for dance, and we went, I think we ended up in middle school together. We definitely ended up in high school together. I don't know how many classes we ended up having together, but we always knew each other after that. And I always fondly have thought of this person, and I followed her on social media over the years because she still lives in my home state of Minnesota. Shout out St. Louis Park, Minnesota, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Twin Cities. Very, very cool, hip culture and place that I very much love. So welcome to the podcast, Genna Middlebrook. That was your maiden name. So Genna Middlebrook is how I know you, but your married name is Middlebrook. Genna Middlebrook, my bad.
Yes,
maiden name Zigomalis for all those who know the Z up in the SLP. Genna, you're an ASL interpreter now, which I love.
Yes.
Because also it's so dancey, P.S. It's like a language of dance.
Yes.
I think it's so cool. Yes, I think it's so cool.
Yes.
So please, if there's anything else you want to add to the pod, if you want to adjust my memory, which who knows what my memories are nowadays, please feel free.
No, I love that introduction actually, and that's beautiful because we did hate math, so it was a mutual.
We hate it. I still hate math.
I still hate math. I don't like using it.
And I'm
it's
still
not my
bad
friend.
at it.
I know, still not great at it. Still not great, but it was really good because I think that's where we did bond, and we just kind of always knew of each other, and we were always kind of looking out for each other, and
yes.
yeah, so
yeah,
that's
and I'm so
beautiful.
glad to still be in touch with you, even on the interwebs and stuff. We've had little conversations here and there as more and more unprecedented events have happened.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm very ready for precedented events. Period. I've had enough unprecedented. I'm ready for some just precedented events.
Let's just have that happen for a while. I'd be fine with that. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So,
that's good to
Genna,
be here.
Oh, I'm so glad you're willing to give me some of your precious time.
Yes.
I put out a little feeler on the Instagram about, hey, if there's people who have been in this in a certain situation in and around abuse and would be willing to speak about it, like, hit me up. And you were someone who hit me up, and we were not far from having little talks here and there and comments. So I loved that you hit me up. Because I do know you, and I do recall a little something that I feel like you might have been public about quite a few years ago that I kind of filed in the back of my head. You file things in the back of your head and you think, oh, maybe this person would be interested, maybe that person. But I don't like to usually ask people outright unless I'm really sure that they're in that situation and ready to talk about it. Because I also am a huge believer in attraction rather than promotion. So like people who come to me or in my circle, or like if I say something and then they come with that information, I'm like, perfect. Because that to me is kind of like the right thing versus like, hey, why don't you come? Like, I don't like to talk anybody into it. And it seems like Roderick and I on this podcast, people who we kind of seek out to do heavily, it never works out. like something,
Interesting.
there's like a resistance. So, but people, I mean, I source most of the people, but it's usually through like people who decide to tell me things, or people, if I throw a little feeler, will come to me with some information. So
Wow.
attraction rather than promotion has been kind of the way. So I was so happy to see your DM, and I'm again happy you're here today. Would you mind telling us in your own words, as much or as little as you want, a little bit
Sure.
about your story or your experience with the broad topic of abuse?
Yes. I just want a quick note though that I think that that's very powerful that that's how you run and how you do
Good.
things
I'm
because
glad you like it.
I think that's beautiful. And
Yeah.
sent you the message and then afterwards I was like, I'm not sure I should have done that. And then
Oh,
I was like,
yes. That's the
yeah, that
proper
was
response.
okay, good.
Yeah.
And then my husband was like, no, I'm glad you did that. That was definitely the right thing to do. I was like, okay. So I got done with college and then got, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, a real job or whatever they say
Yeah,
when
we
you're,
did real life
I
after
guess,
that.
did real life. I tried to do real life. And
I'm still trying.
I was not sure I'm great at it, but I was working at a company and I was in between relationships and I met this person who very much pursued me.
Mm.
I, looking back, actually thinking about all this before I came to talk to you, I was kind of thinking about it a lot and just realizing like, oh, wow, I was completely like, they found me and they were interested in me and they pursued me and they were very much like, we should try this and I think we would be really great. And so we did. And in the beginning, it was great, I thought. And as time went on, just little things started to change. Like, where are you? What are you doing? Who are you with? Um, and then it became just, everything just kind of became about them, like what they needed in their life and how they needed their career to be, where, um, how they weren't getting enough social time, how they needed to make sure everything was okay for them. And so I think it it didn't it didn't initially start out as anything that I think I was really aware of. I think as we started to get more serious, I just kind of, a lot of the friends that I was friends with just kind of stopped hanging around just because I was always busy with them. I didn't have any time for anybody else. It was kind of like, well, what are we doing today? Um, when are you done with work? Let's make sure we meet up. And so I think it just kind of everything shifted to that. So we ended up moving in together. We did get married. And then I got pregnant and ended up having my kiddo, my oldest. And I think when I realized something wasn't okay was when I got pregnant. I think there were a million signs beforehand, but I think once I got pregnant, things just got worse. So it was, they lost their job and didn't tell me. And the way I found out was they were getting up every morning and leaving the house while I was
Stop.
pregnant. No, for real. For a month.
Stop it. This is like a Dateline episode.
It is. No,
It's
it
like
really
one of
is.
those 2020
It
episodes,
is.
like about
2020.
scam artists. Like,
I mean, truth though, Jill,
oh my
truth.
gosh. Oh
So
my God.
I don't do well during pregnancy. Like, throw up, I'm sick. So I would like interpret, like I'd walk to the place I was interpreting, interpret, walk home, be throwing up, lay in
Oh my
bed
God. Oh my God.
as long as I, like as long as I could till I had to like interpret again, then get up and do that. But for a month, they were getting up, kissing me goodbye, leaving, going all day, coming home. And the way I found out was that rent wasn't paid.
Right.
The landlord
Eventually,
called.
you're like,
The
what?
landlord called and goes, "Well, where's the rent?" And I'm like, "Well, what do you mean, where's the rent? Like, didn't we pay the rent?" And so then I asked my partner at the time. I was like, "Well, where's the rent?" "Well, I can't believe you're getting so upset with me." I'm like,
The
"What are you
gaslight.
talking about? What do you mean upset? Like the rent isn't paid. Like, why didn't you pay the rent?" "Well, I was let go from my, really was fired, but I was let go from my job and I was just trying to find a job in the meantime because I didn't want to stress you out, because I knew it would stress you out. I'm like, we're ready. We're going to have a kid. Like,
You're like,
I mean,
now we're going to get evicted. I'm a little more stressed now.
Yeah, things are worse than it was. But then it just became about like, well, you're not handling this very well.
Right.
I need time. I'm going to go hang out with my friend. So now I'm sick, like in and out of the hospital because I'm so sick from the pregnancy and like losing weight constantly. The baby's fine. I'm just not feeling great.
But it's not bad. Yeah, it's not good for you. Yeah.
Not good for me, right. And so then now we have your income's gone, and then I'm not going to have an income soon because I'm not going to be working, and you know how it is. You have to work to earn money, right? Just like me. Like I don't have a whole bunch of PTO because if I'm not signing, I'm not getting paid.
Yeah.
And so it was just like this whole doom and gloom. So I reached out to my family, and I was like, you know, I don't know what to do. And so my dad was like, well, why don't you just come here for the weekend and we can chat about it. And what does my partner do? Goes up north to hang out with friends, because why wouldn't you do that? Because you're so stressed, because I'm stressed. It was like the whole gaslighting, like you're overreacting. So I need to do this so that I can be okay.
So the interesting thing that you've said that I'm picking up on is that you were isolated first before even getting married, right? Which is scary, right? Because now you're in a more permanent situation and you're already isolated. And then as you're pregnant, you know that the income's going to be going out. The projection is standing out as like one of the most prominent things, right? Instead of the accountability of like, yeah, I lost my job and then I lied about it because I was scared to tell you. It's you have a problem. You're overreacting. You're talking to me badly, or what? I'm putting words in more, but like this kind of thing where it's like it's never the individual's fault. There's no accountability, right? It's always like, how can I spin this so that this empathetic person who has every reason to be upset right now based on my actions, how can I make it seem like they are the source of the problem?
I mean, 1,000%. So I'm just in this situation where like I don't know what to do. So I'm chatting with my dad, and I think he's trying to be very like diplomatic, I'm guessing, because he doesn't, I think he knows that it's not great, but also he knows that like he's about to be a grandfather and there's a baby. I think he doesn't want to say too much because he doesn't want to like push something the wrong way.
Well, he's smart too, because I think we all have known a friend at some point that's in a bad situation. It doesn't even have to be abusive. It could just be like a shit relationship that you're like, it's not good. And you've done, all of us, if you come to a certain age, you found out that when you badmouth the other person's partner and they don't leave, it gets really awkward for a really long time. So you just, you usually start to learn that like, just don't say shit until it's dead, gone, and really over. Then you can be like, I never liked them anyways. And they're like, why didn't you tell me? It's like, you can't say that to someone.
No.
Like, no. Okay. So I think your dad,
you gotta wait till it's done. Yeah.
Your dad's smart. He was like, look, I'm not going to take a side, I'm not going to get crazy. But he probably, I'm sure, was just like, this is bad. Like he was probably like not happy.
Yeah. Later on, he definitely let me know that it was not great. So
he's like, come
like,
through, come to me. Yeah.
So we're hanging out and we're chatting. And then of course, then my partner's texting constantly and like, well, I'm on the way home and I want to make sure that you're home and we have to have dinner and we need to talk. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, well, why is that always when you're like, when you need this or when you need that? But I think because I was so alone, I didn't really know like what was right or what was wrong, especially in these moments of like, I mean, chaos, really. It just felt like chaos. So when you get ready, it's not great. I'm like, well, what are we going to do? Like money wise, like, and they're like, well, I'll figure it out. And so I think in I think in survival mode or whatever I was in, I was just like, I have to let that piece go because I'm ready to have a kid. And literally a month later, I had my daughter. And so I have her, and it just gets exponentially worse. I started working way too soon because there was no other income, right? There was no other income. And anything that was saved, ended up being used on booze, tattoos.
No.
I'm telling you, like anything, like really out of a Dateline. I mean, really, you're right, Joey. It's kind of like a Dateline. I mean, like now that I'm saying it out loud, you're like, man, it got Dateline involved. But no, I mean, I didn't get Dateline involved. And I'm laughing about it now, but in the
Yeah, but
moments, like,
yeah, you're like, we don't have any money and you're getting tattoos and drinking booze and like using all the
and then,
money.
and then like I'd come home from interpreting and the baby's crying
Oh,
and you're like in the kitchen on the phone talking to other people. And so bottom line, what ended up happening was a Super Bowl weekend 2011, they needed to go away again for the weekend. Why? I don't know. The baby's what? 6 months old at this time.
Mm-hmm.
They leave and I'm going through the room. Like I'm just cleaning. The baby's asleep. I'm just kind of cleaning, crying. What am I going to do with my life? I don't really know what to do anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I start going through boxes and I find cards from all of these girls.
Oh my God.
Like, I love you. I can't wait till you leave your wife.
Oh no.
I can't wait till we're together. Maybe we can, maybe I can be a mom to your kid. Like just literally like,
Oh my God.
and I just start and then I just start crying. And then I called my friend who had stayed my friend, even though like I was pretty isolated, and I just started crying and I was like, I think I've been cheated on. I'm being cheated on. I can't be here anymore. I don't know what else to do. Like, I don't, I love them, but I don't even know if this, like, is this what love is supposed to be? Like, what is this? And I'm just crying and sobbing. And she says, we've all been waiting.
Oh
We've
shit.
all been waiting for you. And I just like lost it. And she's like, call your dad, call your stepmom, and let's get you out. And so Super Bowl weekend, friends that I hadn't seen in a long, like everybody like came out.
Wow.
Like took down the crib, got the baby. Like we just got as much out as we could. And I left and I moved in with my dad and my stepmom.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
We've all been waiting.
And then the texts started coming Sunday night when they came home. Like,
right.
Just horrific texts. And
yeah.
Yeah. So that's, I don't know, the long and short of like that. So.
And so once you left, obviously they came home. They're obviously upset, right? And did you say anything about it? Did you just like, this is what's happening?
So
was there punishment for you leaving?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, just kind of who I am. I've never been great with confrontation. Like I'm just not that
you're
kind
not,
of person.
You're not a confrontational person.
No. So my hands were sweating and I'm like, I have to text and say. So I basically said, well, I found all your cards. And I said, stuff I've kind of been suspicious of for a very long time is all true. Mm-hmm. The things I was asking you about, like, who are you with? Why are you constantly on your phone? Like, all of it's true. So you are cheating on me. You have been cheating on me. Mm-hmm. You've been buying, I don't know, whatever you're buying, because I found pills. Just like everything that I thought was happening. And then I was like, no, it's not happening because they're saying it's not happening. So I must be crazy. I was like, it's all true. So I have nothing else to say to you. We're done. Mm-hmm. I'm moving out. And you're not really safe to be with the child. So I will be taking the child. And if you have any issue with it, you can get a lawyer and figure that part out. And then you are the worst person ever. I can't even believe, you didn't deserve me. I don't know what you're talking about. you've lost your mind. It's not true. They just liked me and they wanted to be with me, but I didn't do anything. You know, just like all the gaslighting and how you can like change that to fit your narrative, because, you know, that's what you do. And then probably the worst text was, when I pushed you down the stairs, I should have pushed you through the window. And then my dad took my phone and said, and you're done, and we'll change your number. And I don't think that you really need to have any more engagement. So, and then started the whole fear of like, well, what do I do? Because the person that I married was a female. And so I had a lot of fear about like, well, I mean, equal rights. Like, just because I had the kid, do I keep the kid away from the, like, if it had been a male.
It makes it a little more tricky.
Right.
Because of how I'm assuming you had to go about conceiving. So for some reason, that makes things even more tricky legally.
Legally. However, I think somebody was looking out for me, because when I got the birth certificate, the person's name wasn't on it. So however it got
Stop it.
I know. Really, now I'm like, why didn't I go to Dateline? Jill. I should have gone to Dateline.
So good.
But I went to you. I was waiting for you.
2020 at least. 2020. I mean, I'm better than Dateline in 2020.
You're better
than
honest. That. This is why I waited.
More niche. I'm less populous, but like.
But better. It's such a better
interview.
Now. I mean, this is going to take off. Then right.
Big time.
But my stepmom said something to me that kind of just like, I don't know, like rattled me. She was like, well, somebody was looking out for you. Like, because now legally, what is she going to do? And like, and really, what are you worried about? Because now you can heal, and you can also realize that this, whatever happened to you. And now it's your job to heal and do better. And if she really comes at you with whatever, like, you have a sea of people that will attest to the fact that she should not be alone with this child.
Right.
At all. And so I think for me, the loss of stuff, like, I mean, I left most everything I had. Like, I left with what I could leave with, because I just didn't want to have any more
interactions. Yeah.
I was just done, Jill. I just realized at that point, like, I can't do that to this kid. I can't do that to myself. And what am I going to stay for? Like, the next time, you probably will push me out the window. Like, you probably will do something that, well, how will we come back from? Or how will I come back from?
Yeah.
So.
And you can't fix it. There's no fixing people. Yeah.
I tried.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm sure you did. Yeah. So I'm hearing in your story, like, it kind of checks all the boxes as far as like, there's a physical aspect of abuse that was present. There's obviously emotional. There's financial, and not in the way that people usually think, just money when they say financial abuse, which I'm so glad this is becoming more the narrative. Like, it's diversifying what abuse is. So people are now starting to learn that financial abuse is a thing. A lot of times, though, I think they think financial abuse is just like someone's keeping money from you. I think that's very common in an abusive relationship, is that someone who wields the power of the relationship has the money and they're the one distributing it, and then they can withhold it and make sure that people don't have money, and it's another way to control someone, which is true and I think happens often. But then there is also this side of abuse where someone is not financially contributing to the relationship and it becomes abusive, right? Because now you're fending for yourself. You're not having everything you need. It's like, it is an abusive attribute to the relationship. Like, just because one is taken away and one is never given, or one is, it's all kind of the same thing. So there's a physical aspect, there's an emotional aspect, there was a financial aspect. And I'm sure there's more if we want to get into it. What do you think, for you, which was the worst part? Because I know for me, in the relationship I talk about in the first episode, I think the worst part for me was the like some of the psychological abuse of like the projection stuff, right? Like it's you're the problem. It's your fault that this is happening. And then
Yes.
also like the abandonment, because this person would like just leave me places and like take off and I wouldn't even know it. And then it'd be like an hour or 2 hours. This is in the 90s. So I was like, I didn't have a cell phone, or you weren't really supposed to use it unless there's an emergency. And like, how do I describe that, or how do I defend that with my parents? Like if they see me use all these calls, because that's how you could, you get your bill because you see the
Yeah.
calls on it. And so like everything was a little more transparent, like in that way. So it's like, there was no Uber. So how do I get home? They have my
Right.
car, like there's so many things that I was just like, I don't know how it put me in such an absolute victim position of I can't take care of myself in this moment, that when they would finally show up, I was just so happy that they showed up. I would be pissed, but then they'd wait just long enough that I would become desperate, and then they would show back up, and then you're like, they're your savior in the moment, even though they created the problem to begin with. And so that was some of the most damaging shit for me, because I still very easily will take responsibility for things that are not mine. That's also from growing up in the household I grew up with, and just like my temperament and a lot of things like that, right?
Yeah.
But I'm susceptible to that. And then I'm also really often paranoid that people are going to leave me, that things are going to leave, that really has kind of stuck around. And it's weird because it will happen at the weirdest times.
Yes.
Like I've been with my partner for like 15 years. They've never done anything like that. But every once in a while, if they're gone for too long, I'm like, well, they just like they left and now I have to figure it out on my own. Like it's very weird. So
Yes.
that's a long introduction of a question of like, for you, what was the worst? Because some people might be like, getting thrown down the stairs was the worst, but I have a feeling it's probably more psychological. But please.
I just that whole just sorry, what you just said was I identify a lot with that. I think that that's still my biggest problem. Like you were just saying, like 15 years, and like my husband and I now, what, we've been married 10 years, and I still will. Last month, I was like, what if you leave and then I have to do this all on my own? And he's like, where am I going? And I'm like, I don't know. And it's still such a messed up thing. Like I still have those moments of doubt of like, and I think because I was left, because what do you need to go to Duluth for? Because you need whatever, or because you need to, like, everything was about what you need. And then, right, the coming back and being like, right, I didn't even think about it that way. Right, they wait just long enough and then they're back, and then you're like, oh God, everything's fine. And then you're like, but it's not fine. Like, how could you do that to me? But you're so happy that like they're back and they're there and everything's going to be fine and you're going to be okay. So I would 1,000% say that. Just the constant push and pull of like, we're okay, we're not okay, what did I do? And constantly fixing everything. Like, oh, I'll do this, or I'll just work more, or I can interpret more, or like I went back to work 2 weeks after. Like I was already interpreting. And it's my first baby. I don't know what I'm doing. Like,
oh my God.
You don't know what you're doing. And then I think about just like that and the repercussions of like how breastfeeding was not very easy because I was so stressed to the point of like, I can't even breathe or function. And so then I think about even the financial piece of like, well, I'll figure it out. And then you never figure it out. Well, so then I'll just keep trying to figure out everything. So I think it was that constant. So yeah, I mean, pushing me hurt.
Yeah.
But maybe in that moment, I would have even said, I don't know, push me harder, because then it's almost like you feel something. I think the psychological effect of trying to figure out everything and what they're doing and what the next thing is going to be, or what I'm going to do that makes them mad, or was exhausting. It was so exhausting.
Yeah, it takes up a lot of energy, right? Eggshell walking, the drama in the relationship, because I've never, ever heard of an abusive relationship that wasn't dramatic, right? Because that's part of the abuse, is the cycle of abuse is very dramatic.
All the
high,
time.
high, low, lows, very manic. You know, it's
Yes.
the traditional cycle of the honeymoon phase, the love bombing phase, and then it gets bad, and then there's the apology phase, and then it's the honeymoon phase again. It's just
Mm-hmm.
like this cycle
Constant.
over and over again.
Over and
Yeah.
over again.
And I've talked to like psychologists too about like for kids, like what, and I might have mentioned this already on one of the episodes, but I just find it so fascinating. If you ask them, what is like the worst, most adverse childhood like type of abuse? Like what's the worst type? People think, oh, it's got to be sex abuse, right? That's the worst type. Or, oh, if it's not sex abuse, then it's got to be like beating the shit out of your kid. Like that's got to be the worst. Or they think, oh, well, you know, like maybe emotional abuse. Like that's really terrible. It's abandonment. Abandonment is the worst. Abandonment is the worst, and then it's emotional abuse because the narrator in our head takes on our earliest voices. Yeah, our earliest voices is who we take on. So if that resonates with you, the voice you talk to yourself in, how you talk to yourself, you may recognize as some of your earliest, the voice of, not in their voice, in your voice, in your head, but in their words. Is often the earliest dialogue you may have. If you're from a family or were around people who maybe were emotionally abusive when you were young, but they say hands down it's abandonment. Like when you abandon a child or you ignore a child or you leave, you know, for long periods of time as an abandonment, not like I go on a work trip or I got to do this, or I got to I have to work, but like abandonment.
Yeah. And all of that makes so much sense now in retrospect and in therapy and in healing and all of those things. Because as you know, my mom died when I was 13.
Yes.
So as I started to unpack this and how this happened and why this happened, I started to realize I'm not saying it's not my fault that this happened to me. And in the same breath, it was a huge eye-opener of, wow, so your mom died. You were abandoned in the worst way possible. And you thought or felt that somehow you deserved that. And that's where you should be, or I'm sure that's how I was so easily sought out.
Right. You were primed for it.
Because
you were primed for that extra love and attention and mothering or taking care of or whatever that is, you know.
Yep.
At first, which was and I love that I don't love it like in the sense of I love it.
No.
But like,
no, I know,
I
honey.
love your abuse.
I know.
But like I value so much you talking about the beginning of the relationship and how they pursued you.
Yes.
Because I think that's super common too. Like,
yes.
I don't think people notice it, but if you listen to a lot of collective stories, the person we would categorize as the abuser is seeking out their people and is very persistent, you know, or very focused on getting what they want. And I think a lot of us, because we might come from a place of feeling unworthy or having some of that, it's like it's like a hole we can't fill already. Yep. So it's like a temporary fix, and it feels so good. So I'm just throwing that out there as information for anybody that might be like light bulb or red flag, you know.
And they come after you hard.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And nowadays, I don't need to be in those positions, luckily, but like if I was and someone was coming for me hard, I would have the reaction you think you would have if you were unworthy, which is like, why are you doing that? Like, you know, like you think if you're unworthy, your response to someone coming for you hard would be like, why are you doing that? I'm not worthy. But now that's my response, because I'm like, why are you doing that? You don't even know me.
Right.
But like, but if you're from a place of not having it, instead of being like, what's wrong with you? I'm unworthy. It's like, please I need it so badly. I am unworthy. Like, what do you have to say? Like, can you give me the work? You know? So
truth.
I think it's really important that you said that at first, because I think that's a through line that people maybe don't put together right away, and can be something that to look out for people who might find themselves susceptible, or maybe are in the beginning of relationships right now, and you're hearing this and you're like, ding, wait a minute, hold up. Did I just hear that? Yes, that might be happening. Yep. you mentioned therapy.
Oh, yeah.
I'm so glad you did because
Oh, yeah.
I don't love therapy. Like I don't love going. I don't think people might not misunderstand my relationship with therapy. I do not like therapy. I try to get out of my appointments like every week. I'm constantly like, oh yeah, I think I can't do that. And like, luckily
I
my
love you,
therapist just
Jill.
kind of like, like she's like, well, let's try the next week. Can you do the next week? And I was like, yeah, I could do the next week. But like,
Maybe.
yeah, if there's any way I can get out of it, I'll get out of it. And I will also not talk about anything that bothers me for the first 45 minutes.
And then
And
the
then I'll drop
last
a
15,
bomb
you do
right
at
in
the
the
last
last.
15.
Yeah. I'm like, yeah, I think I feel good. Now I'll tell you the real shit. And then they have no time to help me process it. So this is
Jill.
how, yeah, it's terrible.
And then I got to wait for the next session.
Yeah, and you know what's worse is that I know all of this, and I get to keep fucking doing it. But anyways, so I just want people to know I talk about therapy all the time on this podcast, like I just it's so great, and it is great, but I
Yes.
personally hate it. It's
Yes.
not okay. It's not necessarily like there's nothing wrong with. I'll put it this way: there's nothing wrong with you if you go to therapy and you're like, this is uncomfortable. I hate
Yeah.
it. I don't want to go back.
Yeah.
I feel worse.
Yes.
That's
1,000%.
part of it.
Yes.
It gets worse before it gets better. It's
Yes.
not comfortable. It's
Nope.
not like you airing your inside mind
Yep.
to an outside professional
Mm-hmm.
doesn't feel good.
Nope.
Sometimes it does. If you're lucky, you're
Yeah.
lucky. Sometimes it feels good. You're like, yay. And then, but it's over time, it gets better and better. And
Yes.
over time, there's freedom. And over time, like, there is such a big difference. That's why I'm such a proponent of it. But it's like
Yeah.
anything else. You start a new regiment to get healthy. You start, like, it's not easy in the beginning. It's not fun. So I want to say that. But you mentioned therapy. So I'm so glad
Oh, yeah.
that you did the big T word.
And it was just eye-opening. There was like those moments of like in the beginning and to be honest, in the beginning I was like, well, I did all that therapy when I was a kid because my mom passed away. Why would I need to do this again? I don't understand why this is such a big thing. And I was like, it's fine. I mean, maybe once a month, but I'm fine. I'll figure this out. And then once a month became, oh yeah, maybe I should be going every week. And then just a lot of unpacking of like, how did this start? How did I get here? Why me? And then I think more and more it was less about why me and okay, now I know these things. What am I going to do differently now? And how am I going to live my life differently? Because all of that stuff comes with you. Like, unless you do something about it, it's not going to go away. So the feeling of I'm not worthy enough or I'm not good enough, why do I feel that way? Like, what made me a prime person for them to literally be banging on my door because they wanted to be with me, because they could see it probably from like 5 miles away, that I would be the person that would take care of them and make everything okay. And being in therapy helped me realize that. And even now, like when I have those moments and I talk to my therapist and she's like, well, what are you really feeling inside? I'm like, well, everything's fine. I don't even know why this would come up. And then some little reminder of like, oh, well, remember when somebody did something? And I'm like, oh yeah, maybe that's why I feel like this. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
there it
yeah.
is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and I find you to be probably one of the how I remember you too, because it's not like I talk to you every day.
Yeah.
We're not in touch like that. But I feel like you're probably very close to how I know you and how I met you. And you are one of the most empathetic people I know. And that is like, I know a lot of motherfuckers. And I know a lot of empathetic. I know a lot of empathetic motherfuckers. And you are like, I would put you in the top 5. So you like to someone who is narcissistic or someone who is like wants that's kind of like their perfect opposite for how they're rolling. Like you are prime real estate. I'll tell you that right now.
Oh yeah.
You're like grade A, choice sirloin, organic, no hormone, like farm to table, like just the most prized possession when it comes to for sure. Because go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to say, I think that's a really good point. I think until you change your how you think about yourself and how your own self-worth and what you are worthy of, that keeps showing up. And I think my fear was like, well, I don't want to be not empathetic. Like, I don't want to not be Genna, but
Mm-hmm.
how can I be Genna in a way that's not going to destroy myself?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you can't destroy yourself for
Yeah.
other people. And I was like, I was
Mm-hmm.
literally, sure, I'll do that. Okay, sure, I'll do this. Okay, I'll
Mm-hmm.
lessen myself so you can be bigger. Like, I will do all these things to fit you, but what's left of me? Who am I? I don't even know who I am anymore.
Yeah. I think that's a common thread, especially when people become enmeshed, right?
Yeah.
Or people are highly empathetic. Their boundaries keep chipping away, chipping away, chipping away, chipping away until they don't know who they are anymore.
Yep.
And also, they're now in like a codependent situation where,
Yep.
and we have definitely talked about that on this season, was basically like the codependency of I'm okay when you're okay,
Yep.
but I'm only okay when you're okay. That kind of like
1,000%.
reflective mirror,
Yep.
um, which is seems to be kind of a reoccurring factor.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think that um that's the I don't know if you remember like when you left, or when you were finally, like when you were alone with yourself. I remember I would put the baby to bed, and then I would be alone because I left and I moved
Right.
into my own place. And I just remember being alone in my apartment, and my baby was sleeping, and I would just be like sitting there like, I don't know what to do. Like I'm and I couldn't read. Like I couldn't read books because I couldn't like calm down enough to read. I couldn't, like, I didn't even, like, what did I like? I didn't even know what I liked, what I wanted to do, who I was. So it was literally relearning my whole self. Like, oh, I still like dancing. Oh, I actually do like to read. Oh, what kind of things do I like to watch? I don't even know. Oh, I like going for walks. Like, you don't even know who you are. Like, you don't know how to identify your own self. It was literally finding out who I was, and really looking back, did I really even know who I was in college? I think I just kind of like was drifting through life, and I had
Mm-hmm.
no idea of who I was. Um, so yeah, that was a big piece of just the healing process, which I feel like I'm still healing, I'm sure.
Yeah. I thank you so much for sharing that aspect of it, because that is also super common. It's people who get out of these types of relationships. It's like getting out of a cult. Like you don't it's a similar type of
Yes.
brainwashing, and until you've been in the situation, I don't think people fully can grasp it, that it happens really slow, really
Yep.
like so slow that you can't see it as it's happening.
Yes.
And because if it happened off the bat like this, it's like anything. If something that has something wants to take ultimate power, it has to go in little small increments.
Yep.
If someone just all of a sudden kidnaps you and pieces out, you're like, this is wrong. But if you slowly introduce ideas and slowly break down, oh, that what you see is not actually what's going on. What I
Mm-hmm.
did is not actually what happened.
Yep.
No, 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 you're overreacting, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is the thing. This people do this to each other. People do this to people they love. And this happens on a grand scale in culture as well. You didn't
Yes.
see what you saw. Don't be
Yep.
oversensitive. That's not what they said it was.
Yep. And that piece, don't be oversensitive. Oh my, I can't even. That is like such a
And they're
trigger.
doing something terrible.
Yes.
And they're and this is the thing. This is something abusers use to gain more access to do what they want to do.
Yes.
So it's a slow desensitization so that they can continue to do what they want to do. No, you didn't see what you saw.
Mm-hmm.
No, I didn't do what I did.
Mm-hmm. It's a
Do
smoke
and
show.
then yeah, and then to make jokes about it.
Yep.
Oh, you're too sensitive, or I was just joking around.
Come on,
The gaslight,
Jenna.
the gaslight, the gaslight.
Yep.
So then they
Constant.
can do it again and do it worse and then do the whole thing again.
Yep.
And you're sitting here like, I know I'm not insane. They just did the thing that I know they did, and they're trying to tell me they didn't. And you get so exhausted defending
Yep.
what you know you saw that eventually you get tired,
Mm-hmm.
and you get tired, and you get more tired, and you get more tired. And eventually you're like, yeah, I guess maybe I didn't, because now it's easier not to fight. I'm so
Exactly.
tired. It's easier not to fight. It's easy. I guess I did it. And then they can do whatever the
Maybe,
fuck they want.
right. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I
Yeah.
didn't see it the right way. Maybe they didn't mean to, like, maybe that's not really what happened.
Yeah.
I just remember, I don't know, like, what you remember most, but I remember going when I finally moved out of my parents and into my own little apartment with a baby. And like, I just remember sitting and being like, I don't know what to eat.
Yeah.
I don't know what to, and then as I like worked through all of this stuff, being like, wow, like I think one time I made dinner and it wasn't right. And they just threw it on the floor and were like, well, I'm just going to go pick up something to eat. And I told you what I wanted. I don't know why you didn't do it right. And just being like, oh God. But then like really being like, oh, I didn't do it right. And well, it's terrible dinner and they shouldn't eat it anyway. But like, that's when I was like gone. Do you know what I mean? And then just like the flip side of when you're trying to recover, being like, oh, I do make pretty good food. Like,
Right.
life is
Yeah.
okay. Like, this is okay, but it's such a different world. You're just in a different world. You're really in a
Yeah.
different world.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a brainwashing that happens.
Oh, 100%.
And I just want to remind people who might be listening too that throwing things is abuse. Throwing objects, throwing things, smashing things, even if that person doesn't put their hands on you, throwing objects, throwing things, punching walls, all of that
yes.
qualifies. Take your seat. You've earned a seat at the table.
Yep.
It's not the most fun table, but
Nope.
there are fun people at the table.
We're all great, really.
You're in good company.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's that. As you processed and as you started to heal, you had mentioned therapy. Is there anything else that specifically you want to point out that really helped in this process? And on the other side, is there anything that didn't help that you recall just not being helpful at all?
Wow. I like that question because I feel like that you don't get asked that a lot. Like, what didn't help you? That's a good question to think about. Therapy was wonderful. I think time. I think it just took a lot of time and a lot of patience. And I had a friend who would always say to me, because I say sorry a lot, and I think it got much worse after I left.
Oh, for sure. I'm sure.
Because it just, it just happens. So sometimes I would say, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. And she'd be like, Genna, you don't have to say sorry to me. Like, if it makes you feel better, that's fine. But there's nothing about what you said or did that deserves an apology. And so I would just be like, oh. And she's like, and I'm not saying it to be mean. I'm just telling you because I feel like you've said sorry most of your life and you don't really need to say sorry. And so I think it was just choosing a really good village. It was finding people that loved me for me. And also, I don't know if it's true for you or for other viewers or how it works for other people, but for me, I realized finding my village came very much later. I think the people that I found earlier in life didn't really understand me, and so it took me a while to find the village that I have now. And a lot of the people that knew me when I was in the abusive relationship, I don't really have close relationships with them anymore, just because a lot of them ended up like saying things to my ex that would get back to me or try, like that kind of stuff that was not cut off, and people would make excuses like, oh, well, they were stressed about what, like what their whole life was handed to them by me constantly. They weren't stressed, but anyway, so I had to have a lot of boundaries. I had to have a lot of strong boundaries. I had to also just let a lot of things roll off my shoulder that is not something I'm great at, and have it not matter. Like, you can be mad at me and you can have your own story in your head of who I am, but I know who I am. I know what I went through. And so this is how I'm going to choose to live the rest of my life, because I want to show my daughter, and I have another daughter, that this is how you live your life. you are allowed to be who you are. You are allowed to stand in your truth, and you don't need to apologize for who you are. So there were a lot of people that felt I should have done things differently, and I should have given them a chance to have a relationship with it, just lots of different things.
Right.
And I also said, nope, this is how we're going to move forward.
Yeah.
And so made a lot of decisions that a lot of people are very happy with. And there's also, I'm sure, a lot of people still that are not very happy with the decisions I've made. So
yeah, I'm sure too, the longer people have been in a relationship, people on the outside that are not privy to all the ins and outs of that relationship are probably going to have some pretty strong opinions, right? But they're not in it. They don't have to deal with it, and they haven't been through it. And what I've noticed is, when you stop people pleasing, people are not pleased. And sometimes people very much rely on certain relationships and things in their lives. And then when that changes, it's not so much what's best for the people involved. It's what's best for how they move about life, like, oh, well, this is different now and I don't know how to deal with it.
Yep.
And instead of saying that, like, I have to recategorize how I interact with both of you. Like if someone was friends with both of you, I have to figure out now how I'm going to interact or not, or what I want to do. Yep. It's like, well, why didn't you keep this fantasy going for me? I was having such a good time.
It worked out great for me.
It was great for me. It's like, yeah, no shit, because you're not in it. But
yeah, you didn't live this daily. But yeah, exactly. Like, I have to move about the world differently. Okay, figure that out.
Right? Sounds like
job.
a you problem, right?
Yeah,
sounds like a you problem, which is not easy for you and I.
Oh, no.
You problems are our problems, and we're going to fix it.
Right. Wait,
give me a problem.
I'll
fix it. I'll
not
fix
my
it.
job
I
to
got
fix
it.
it now, right?
Yeah, that's so good.
Yep.
And that's a boundary, and that's a personal boundary. And I like to call them emotional boundaries, which is one of the things I started going to therapy for. How I voiced it was like, I want more emotional boundaries, meaning I want to feel more in control. Imagine that. I want to feel more in control. I want to feel control is my
us.
Drug. Control is my drug. It's my favorite drug.
Right? Yes,
but
it is.
I felt like I didn't have a protective balloon around me, that everything could permeate me all the time. Yeah. Right? That everything that happened and everyone was able to like break my bubble and affect me in a way that was not conducive. And so I felt like there was something inherently really wrong with me, and I worked on that. And now I feel very much protected, and I kind of like let in what I need to let in, but I have like this it's like I can see it. It's like a bubble around me, it's like porous, like a bubble. If you touch a bubble, it'll pop. Mine doesn't pop, but it like, things can come in and then things stay out. Yeah. You got to do some upkeep to keep this bubble, but it is a really nice emotional boundary that I've started to create. And you just mentioned boundaries, and I want to say that sometimes, or a lot of times, but sometimes, I guess, anger is a symptom of your boundaries being crossed. Yeah. So when something happens and you get angry, a lot of times it's like someone or something just crossed your boundaries. And so it's nice to, if you're like me and you get angry, you just see it's blind rage and you can't like see anything else. So but what I'm trying to do is, like, in those moments, acknowledge the anger, be like, not have a feeling about it, just like this is the advice of my therapist. Like, can we not label the anger as good or bad? Like, can we just like acknowledge it as just it's anger? Yes. It's just anger, it's rage. But then when I've cooled down, I can look and be like, what happened to make me angry, obviously, but like, what boundary was crossed? Yeah. If that's what it was. And then what is, going forward, how can I protect, or what kind of boundaries are for you? They're not for other people.
100%.
Like, people think boundaries you make for other people, like rules for other people to follow. No. But really it's for you. It's to how to protect yourself, right? Yeah.
I have a question. Well,
I never get a question. Give me a question.
Okay,
I want a question.
I have a question for you, Jill. So for me, I was never good with anger. I don't know if you remember. I was just not an angry person because everything was always fine. And then after all this happened and then all this healing, I'm mad. Yeah. I'm mad about a lot. Yeah. Did you run into that? Like now I'm like, ooh, this is anger. What the fuck? What is this? What are we doing? And I would, like, and I just,
why do I want to set things on fire?
Yeah. I mean that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, okay, so I have theories. I have my own. This is a good question. So I, fortunately or unfortunately, have
Okay.
had anger my whole life.
Okay.
I feel like I take after my dad. Like, we're both like super hot-headed, super easy to like get into anger, but I was not allowed to be angry. So I
Yep.
felt anger, but I was not allowed to express or have anger.
Yep.
So because that was, for some reason, only my dad was allowed in the household to
Be
express his
angry.
anger.
Yep. Okay.
And so that manifested in me never really being able to express how I felt about anything.
Anything.
Because when I would try, I would cry because I couldn't express myself because there was so much anger, or
Yeah.
I wasn't of the practice of expressing myself because I wasn't allowed to, because
To be you.
the big emotions weren't allowed, right?
Yeah.
The anger was cut off like right away, like absolutely not. You're not allowed to act like that. And then the crying was always like, you're not going to be taken serious now. No one's going to listen to you. Like, what are you doing? I'll give you something to cry about, that kind of thing. And then, so it made everything really difficult. But I do think that unexpressed anger for me manifested in depression a lot.
Oh, okay.
In and out of depression. Like,
Fair.
so oftentimes, if I'm kind of going through a bout of depression, there's a probably good chance that I've probably got some undissolved anger or some misplaced anger, some anger I haven't worked through yet about something. Because anger is my first response, but it's not a first emotion. Like, my knee-jerk reaction is to be angry, but usually it's because of something else. I'm hurt, and now I'm angry.
Right.
So, yes. So there's that kind of thing. But also, I want to add that it is not okay in our culture for women to be angry. It's still not.
That's so true.
And it's not okay for Midwestern girls to be angry. You have to be nice. Yep. Minnesota nice is a thing. It's our fucking banner, right? And good girls are nice. And I think that's why girls gossip so much and become so psychologically terrible to each other, is because they're not encouraged to express their anger or violence. Women are not allowed to hit each other more than boys are. Like, boys are like literally trying to kill each other, and it's like they're roughhousing, they're playing. That's how they relate. They're just boys. They play rough, right? But girls aren't allowed, and it's part of maybe girls don't naturally want to kill each other like that, but or dominate each other. But what if they were allowed to physically express themselves more like boys? What if they were allowed to be as angry as guy or boys can be? Would there be as much of this like gossip and psychological, manipulation that goes on? Because it's got to go somewhere. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I am definitely getting more and more in touch with the anger. And I think, too, it's one of those things that, like, if you don't get a handle on it earlier, you're going to definitely deal with it as you get older, because I think women's hormones start to scramble and get Hulk. And that,
all over
like,
the place in the party. Yeah.
Yeah. And then now it's like there's anger that just comes with hormonal shifts as well. And, so yes. And I recall several instances, since you asked me that question, I can remember several instances in my recovery over a series of things where there is so much rage coming out.
Yeah.
Like the rage I feel moment to moment of either like postpartum or this or that is like pales. It's short and it's intense, but it's short. It's like short-lived to some of the rage episodes I've had in processing some of the stuff.
And just like thinking about like what you allowed.
Yeah.
What you allowed to be okay. And I think for me, hormones, like just all of that, I think as I've gotten older and as I've looked back at what I allowed, what happened to me, what I allowed happened to me, what I made okay, what I like, all of it, I just see all this anger that I never allowed in. And now that you also brought up the whole Midwest thing, right? You're not Minnesota nice. You have to be like nice girls and da da. And then I think I think about that too. Like, what does that do to girls? Like the other day, I just said to my youngest, "Are you mad?" Yes. Okay, that's okay to be mad. Just be mad then. Be mad. Because I don't think we were ever allowed to be mad.
No.
So whatever was happening to me and however you're making me feel, I got to figure out how to make everything fine still, to still be okay, to still do all these things. No. I can be mad and you can be mad And girls should be mad, period. Like,
Yeah.
how do you allow, where does that go? It has to go somewhere. And then you eat
Yeah.
yourself alive.
Yeah.
Or you
It
end
goes
up
to autoimmune disorders.
autoimmune and fibromyalgia. I mean, let's just start. Right, exactly. Yep. All of the things.
It's got to go somewhere.
Yep.
It's got to go somewhere. Yeah, I agree.
Yep.
Man, that's good stuff, Genna. That's good stuff, Genna.
Jill, I love you.
It's so good stuff.
Ugh,
I know. I love talking to you.
I love talking to you
Dude,
too.
you made me laugh so hard when I was a kid. Like just pissing my pants laughing. That's all I remember. That's all I remember. It's just you made me laugh so hard all the time. Okay, I have one last question for you.
Do it. Yes.
Okay. I could talk to you for many more hours, but
yes,
I'm trying to keep the podcast nice and tight.
Okay, no, I get that.
For timing. Now, I always say on the podcast at the end of every episode, we don't give advice, but we may give suggestion. So is there any suggestion you have for someone who might be suffering from an abusive situation right now?
It's okay. It's okay if you're ready to leave now. It's okay if you're ready to leave in 5 months. There's no... You may feel a pressure, but leave when you can do it safely. Reach out for help. I think time. I think when you are ready and you're able to leave, you have to give yourself time. I think that you have to learn to love yourself and really fall in love with who you are as a person. And I think that that's something we don't really talk about in society, that we are amazing human beings, and giving ourselves time to figure out who we are, discover that. There's no race to the finish line. You do not need to, you being with somebody else should not be your self-worth. You are enough. And if somebody's hurting you in any way, shape, or form, you don't deserve that.
Mm-hmm.
And you leave when you're ready. Like, I can tell you to leave, but until you're ready to leave, that's when you'll leave. Like, I think, people are like, well, you have to get out, or you have to, like, absolutely. And financially, I mean, for all the things we talked about, financially, emotionally, there's all these different factors, and we just never know where someone's at and if they can leave in a safe way.
Yeah, it's like, I say this a lot, that it's hard to change, and that's if you want to.
Right. Imagine if you don't.
Imagine if you don't want to change, like you're not ready to change yet.
Yeah.
It's already hard enough. It's hard to change anything. It's hard to remember to take your freaking vitamins every morning, let alone, change what you're comfortable. It doesn't mean you're happy. There's a difference between comfort and happy. Like changing, if you're comfortable, meaning you have a house, you have your things, you're in a comfortable situation. You may not be happy, but disrupting all that is hard, and it's a lot of change. And if you're not ready for that change, and honestly, no one's really ready for that type of change, but you're ready to make the effort to get out, to make the first step. But someone has to be truly ready, because like you said, you could tell people, just get out, why didn't you leave? Why don't you leave? It's like, it's not that easy. If someone's not ready, it's not going to happen. It's like someone going to a treatment center for drug addiction. It never works unless they're ready. Yeah. It's already hard when they're ready. They've got everything against them.
Yep.
But I think as a society, we're starting to understand that relationship with drug addiction, but we don't attribute that to anything else in the human condition. Yeah.
Because I still get asked occasionally, but it took you that long to leave?
My gosh.
Yeah, it did. It actually did.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's okay. And you can feel differently, but that's, and I think at first it would anger me, and now I'm like, well, you just don't know. And that's the thing, they don't know.
I'm mad. Now I'm mad about it. Blind rage.
It's fine.
Who are they? I will set them on fire.
It's fine. See? Rage. It's all good. That's okay.
Rage. I mean, it, because I I'm like, you left. Like, you left. Not like, why'd you take yourself? No, you left, because there's a lot of people who don't.
I know.
There's a lot of people who don't. There's a lot of people who,
Yeah.
those types of relationships to me scare me. These types of relationships scare me because to me they're progressive, much like
Oh,
alcoholism
yes.
is progressive. So
Yes.
eventually someone's going to really get hurt.
Oh, yeah. And
So
it's
it's
going to be
like,
bad, right?
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
100%. 100%. Yeah.
On that terrible last note, Genna,
On that horrific last.
on
No,
that
but
horrific warning for everybody.
yeah.
I mean, I don't want to end on that note, but I can't thank you enough for telling your story. I feel so honored to hear more of it and just listen to your voice. And
Mm,
I just think you're very, very fantastic, and I love any excuse to talk to you. Uh,
you're the best.
and I really appreciate you sharing your experience for
Absolutely.
people. I think it's super valuable,
Absolutely.
and I think it's unique, and it checks a lot of boxes for people who might be having various situations. I think they're going to find some um, alignment in what you're saying, and some that might resonate a lot with a lot of different people. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you for posting that. Like that took courage just to ask. I think that was good, and I'm glad I said yes. And I'm so thankful to be here with you.
Thank you.